This is the Logi Brio 505, the next Logi webcam. The original Logi Brio 4K over here is still really hard to beat in many cases. Now this is not a competitor to that product because it's a 1080p camera, but there are some very interesting things that have been added to this camera to really bring it up to speed with the very latest in developments. So I'm going to take you through that. I'm going to show you some of the cool things on the camera itself and also show you some of the back-end settings. Now firstly, I'll just show you that the actual camera lens is a turn to open and close. Just a little turn over there and it opens and closes. Really slick, isn't it? The other thing also that I wanted to point out is that there are some slots over there for microphone, and you've got my little green ready light over there to indicate that the camera's ready. Now I'll switch over to this camera shortly and you'll see a change over there. And then of course one of the other little things that often you don't even think about is this little base. It's one of the things honestly that I wasn't so fond of on the original Brio, was this little base piece. And although it was flexible, one of the challenges that I experienced was that it didn't swivel from side to side. Now you'll notice that when you look at my PC over here, I've got two monitors, and if my camera, if I wanted to sit in the center, I can't, because that's where the monitors meet. And secondly, if I put it on one or other of the monitors at that slight angle, I'm getting an off-center image, which doesn't quite display the way I want. If only I could twist it just a little bit. And of course, this just pushed in there just with a little bit of pressure, popped in there, which is okay. But now, check this out. I've got this little screw over here that pops out, and I'll just put it to the one side over here. And that little screw pin over there actually magnetically attaches, as you can see over there. And then this is your little base plate. So the base plate itself is very similar to the original one on the original Brio. It's got this little sticky bit here, so you can put it in place, and she ain't going anywhere once you put that in. I haven't quite done that yet because I still tend to move it around. So what I'm going to do just real quickly is I'm going to take this little bit, and it's got the same threading on there as all your camera sockets, which means opportunity, which means I can buy one of these little bases. If I could get them independently of the camera, I could actually go and take this back and add it to any of my sort of attachable cameras. That's not a bad idea, actually, come to think of it. This is clever. This is clever design. This is moving away from the limitations that are sometimes introduced because of the camera design. So I've taken that little pin, I've screwed it in there, it's magnetically sitting over there, and if I take the actual camera holder over here, it just magnetically sits in there, and it's a pretty tight fit. You can see there I've got to put a bit more. It doesn't just swivel on its own. Even if I move the cable, it doesn't swivel, so it's pretty good. The magnetic strength on there is enough to hold it in place. The other thing that's really interesting is not only does it swivel left to right, but again, one of the things I had a challenge with on the original Brio was if you wanted to get the camera to tilt downwards, you'd have to keep bending this bit over there to try and do that. And every time you did that, you kind of messed up the positioning of the camera, which was a little bit frustrating. I know cameras are supposed to be static, but that's just the way I operate. But in this case, check this out. This little bit in the front here actually is a hinge, and you can actually lift it all the way up. Look at that. And it can look all the way down. Now, of course, in that instance, with the weight the way it is it can mess with the camera a little bit on that magnetic bit. But you can see that I can actually tilt that in any direction I want, which is pretty cool. Actually, there you go. So really clever design. I like that. Let's have a look at some of the other aspects in the actual software. I have the Logi Tune software on my PC over here, and you'll see that I have my Brio 505 connected. I'll click on that, and you'll see I've got a bunch of things I can do in here. Firstly, as you can see, hello, there I am. So this is actually real time, right? So that little button over there is my grid view, which is creating these lines. And of course I can turn that off just to see the video clear, or I can turn that on. Now I can pan, that's digitally of course, and that's interesting, of course, right? Pan and tilt and set the camera the way you want. So if you have a scenario where the camera won't tilt or pan the way you want, or you've got to have it in a certain position and it's slightly off, you can come and digitally modify that. But why not use RightSight? Now, if you hover over there, it tells you that RightSight will automatically look for you during meetings. So that's a good idea, right? If I turn that on, I'll get a frame view right there, and you'll see RightSight will try to frame me up so that there's just this little bit of space above my head. So as I move around, hopefully RightSight will come and find me, and there you go. And you'll see again just adjusting to that space above my head, trying to frame me up regardless of how far I am. I haven't actually gone this far with this particular camera, so I'm not sure how far it'll go. Yeah, oh, there we go. Now what I have found, just testing with you right now, is that the framing distance and the framing speed is set on default. If I change the speed to a little bit faster, let's see how we go. Right, okay, let's move around this way, and yes, you can see definitely the framing is a little bit quicker. However, for some reason it didn't quite frame me. Maybe we're still catching up. There we go, that's okay. And let me stand over here. And yes, it's working lovely. Now keep in mind that this is digitally happening, so that's pretty good, hey? I really like that. That's pretty powerful. Let's have a look at the framing distance. Default, closer, further, farther, further. Yeah, potato, potato. Let's go farther and see what happens. Okay, so I'm right up close, and what actually happened is it framed me a little bit wider. So a wider frame, field of view, depending on who you speak to, and you'll notice the gap above my head slightly different, which is interesting. Let's move here real quick and see how we go. Yeah, okay, so again, it's very cool to see that you can modify these sorts of things on the fly. I'm going to leave it at that. I quite like that. I think that works really nicely for me. Let's have a look at the image adjust. We've got all these different exposure levels you can look at, and light compensation, and so on and so on, and you can adjust and set this any way you want. Now keep in mind, the video you're looking at is actually recorded on the 505 right here. Filters, there are a bunch of filters. Honestly, I couldn't be bothered with them actually. That's what, you know, different things like Snapchat are for, so we'll stick out of that for now. Right, now we also have this show mode. Now it's enabled by default. Show mode, if I tilt that camera down right now, it's actually going to use it as a content capture camera. I'm going to do that just real quickly so you can see what I'm talking about right here. Now remember I showed you before that it's got that little bezel, that little adjuster over there. Because I haven't taped my camera down, the whole thing will move, so give me a second. Sorry for the wobbly bits over there, and you'll see, look at that. Oh, I don't know if you noticed, but as soon as I tilted that over, it tilted my screen so that what you're seeing is an inverted image of my hand. So when I write in here, say for example, if I write in here I.M.H.O, your view is actually one where it is not upside down. So what's happened is as the camera goes past a certain point, it switches around that camera. So I'm upside down right there, and there it flips over. It looks to be about 45 degrees actually, and that's interesting. That's cool. That's really cool. I haven't actually seen that on any other cameras, so I really like the show mode. Honestly, I really do like this camera. It behaves fairly well. I like RightSight very much. Show mode is super cool, and it's the only brand I've seen so far that does that. So if you have a camera that does that and I'm not aware of it, hit me up. I'd love to hear about it. Again, it's a 1080p camera, so not 4K. The one I have is also a USB-C connector. Now that's a little bit different also from the original Brio. The original Brio has a detachable USB cable. Very good. So I've just switched over to using the microphone built into the camera for recording the audio. So I mean, this is switching over from my Blue Yeti, so it should be massively different, but at the same time, how good is it for a built-in camera mic? Pretty good, I reckon. So this next test here is just to have a look at how the actual video looks in full screen with Microsoft Teams. Of course, Teams, as you know, uses the 1080p format at this time. If I switch over to the 505, remember it's a 1080p. Let's have a look. And this is where we're going to get some of that smarts. Look at that, the tracking. There we go, stabilizing over there. So if I move a little bit, I should see some tracking. And what I want you to look at is the actual clarity and that sort of thing on the camera itself. That's not a bad image at all, you know, for this little Brio 505. I do like this little guy. Great little product. And some of the smarts. I might just show you also how it behaves when I tilt in a Teams meeting to see what happens when I tilt that camera and use that capture mode. One moment. Right. Now this is interesting. As soon as I tilted it down, you'll see that the content camera capability has been activated in Teams, right? Which is something that I've demonstrated before. So this camera, just by tilting it down, switches over to content camera, and I can now choose whether I'm going to be looking for a document, which is the default over here. I'm going to switch it over to, say, whiteboard. Okay, because I actually do have this this shape over here, and it's looking for some boundaries to be able to do the whiteboard. So what I'll do is I'll just give it some boundaries to work with. There we go. Let's see what happens. All right, let's go with that. And now what we have is we have a whiteboard. So what I'm going to do is just wipe that out real quickly. And this Brio's given me the opportunity to do this whiteboard flick over just by tilting the camera that activated that. So now I can, of course, write over here, right? And it allows me to do all of those sorts of things, and the difference from this type of sharing through Teams is that you'll see that I've actually been ghosted. So here we go. So the Logi Brio 505 allows me to do this on my desktop, and it allows me to do it just by tilting that camera down. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. Of course, if you want to see more videos like this or other reviews that I've done, do subscribe, hit the bell, you know what to do. That way you'll be alerted as soon as any new content is available. I'm Paul Bloom, and this has been In My Humble Opinion.